Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Hour, a show where twice a week I throw a little chaos into Star Trek by reviewing a random episode. Okay, so today's, let's do a little bit of housekeeping here. Last time I talked about all good things, and I don't think I gave it a rating, but obviously it's like a 9.9, the only minor thing that I didn't like was the relationship with Worf and Deanna. So I just wanted to get that out of the way real quick. And then I am going to be doing a review for the first two episodes of Strange New Worlds season 3. Um, Probably immediately after this. So whenever I'm done, I'll take a minute to kind of. I've already wrote down my thoughts, um, and they're going to be very quick reviews. Maybe 5-10 minutes. It's nothing big. Just a few thoughts, observations, and maybe a little bit of rundown of the plot. I'm not gonna run down the plot like I do on this show. Just gonna go over basic points, and that's about it. Because frankly, it's it. I don't have time. I mean, I have time, kind of, but I don't want to. I'm lazy. I don't want to do that for Strange New Worlds. I just want to give very quick reviews. There's only 10 episodes anyway. And then you can decide whether to watch it or not, or unless you're already watching it. I give it more credit than Discovery. I'll say that. I wish they would make the Enterprise look a little bit closer to the original series. The guy that plays Kirk looks nothing like Kirk. He's not Kirk. Like, he does not act like Kirk. The guy they got for Scotty's fine. Uhura is fine. Pike is, Anson Mount's great. Helen Wills was great. You know, uh, but anyway. And what's her name? Rebecca Romaine. She's great. And she's still hot after all these years. So, so they have, what they have is good, decent episodes here and there. Usually with the premiere episodes, like the first two or three, that's usually where they do their best writing, and then it kind of, in the middle, it kind of drops off, and then towards the end, it kind of gets a little bit better. That's been like the pattern. Even with Discovery, it was that similar pattern, except Discovery was a lot worse. Anyway, today's episode is Voyager, Season 3, Episode 8, Future's End. Now, when I did the random generator last time, I couldn't remember what Future's End was, and I kind of speculated it was either this, or this episode. And I knew that it couldn't be the one episode where Harry and Chakotay are in the future and they're trying to send a message to Seven to the past, because they were like experimenting with the engine or something, and Voyager's like covered with ice and shit. I knew it couldn't be that one because Seven doesn't show up until the end of season 3. So it had to be one of the earlier time travels episodes, and turns out this is one that I've seen quite a few times, and it's a part 1. I would love to do both parts and give you the overall rating, but I'll give the rating just for this part 1 episode, and then if this show still exists to the point where I get to do the part 2, we'll do the same thing, and then maybe I'll even do a special combination episode where I rate both parts as a whole overall. But anyway, it starts off and we see on the screen a title that says High Sierras 1967, and we see this hippie dude camping out by himself in California, in the Sierra Nevada, and all of a sudden this glowing object comes across the screen. He's looking up at it, and it crashes, and he comes out and looks at it, and we don't see the object, but it's like glowing, and he's just like, whoa. And that's the teaser. Voyager, I've talked before about Enterprise having like really short, like 30-second teasers, and they do it a lot, but this one definitely pretty short. So anyway, Janeway's after the credits roll and we get the theme, Janeway's in her ready room when Tuvok comes in, and he's trying to give her some sort of reports, security reports or something, but then is interrupted. They call her to the bridge, and I think Chakotay calls her or something, and they say that there's like a spatial rift in front of them. So we see this rift, and it's like this white cloud looking thing with like in the middle there's like a black space, and you check, something just happened, I don't know, and so you start to see this vehicle, this ship emerge from it. So she asked to zoom in, and it's like this triangle looking ship, and it starts firing on them, and they don't know why. Oh, and it has a Federation signature, so they're thinking it's friendly, but it's not. And then this guy hails the ship. The ship is being hailed, and the guy says, "I'm Captain Braxton from the 29th century. There was a disaster in the 29th century that caused the destruction of the Earth's solar system, and you're the cause of it. Voyager is the cause of it." And we see Braxton in another episode, and it's played by a different actor. The guy from, I guess he was in, he's in Quantum Leap, on the last episode of Quantum Leap, but he was also in MacGyver. MacGyver. But he says that it's a time ship, and he's part of the time. I forget what they call them. The time cops, and from the 29th century, and he has to destroy Voyager in order to prevent this disaster from happening. And of course, Janeway's like, Chakotay suggests, I guess he suggests to go ahead and let him do it, and she's like, I'm not gonna sacrifice my ship based on a 10-second conversation. And they have it out, and they're firing on each other, and then it creates some kind of problem with the rift, and the rift like sucks his ship and Voyager back in time. And when there's no sign of his ship, and so Voyager gets there, and they're like, "Where are we?" And they show on the screen, and it's Earth. And then they try to hail Starfleet, and it's not working. And they get these signals, like EM signals, and it's like radio broadcasts and stuff like that. And Janeway's like, "Oh, it's not where we are, it's when we are." And they figure out that it's 1996, and it's LA. They're in LA. So in LA, Chakotay, Tom Paris, Tuvok, and Janeway beam down, and they're trying to track down this time ship. So they split up. So Janeway and Chakotay are on like the beat, or on like the boardwalk of the beach in LA, and Tuvok and Paris are, on the beach, and they're walking along the beach, and they've got their tricorders, and they're trying to follow this signal. And then you see the LA observatory, and it zooms to, you see the exterior, then it goes into the interior, and you see all these posters of like old like monster movies, like Mummy, zombie B movies, like something you would see on Mystery Science Theater or something. And we have Sarah Silverman sitting there. Her character's like, I think it's Rain Johnson. Sound familiar? Rain Johnson. And she's, it's basically SETI, kind of like SETI, but they're observing looking out for alien life. And all of a sudden she sees this signal, and it shows that there's an object orbiting Earth that matches this signal that she's been told to look out for. Then it switches to this big office building, and it's Ed Bigley Jr. And he's talking to some guy about some project that he's working on, and he gets a phone call, and it's her, and she's like, "Hey, that gamma signal that you asked me to look out for, or you asked me to call you if I ever get a hold of it?" And she's like, "It's here." So he hangs up the phone, and he's kind of like, he like dismisses the guy that he's talking to, and he's like interested in this, So back on Voyager, Harry's in charge, and B'Elanna's there, and they're working on the transport. She's working on the transporters, because during the attack, the transporters were damaged, and basically they have emergency transporters, but in order to beam them out, they have to go lower in orbit, basically, into the atmosphere. And so that's a little bit of foreshadowing there. So then Tuvok Tuvok and Paris meet back up with Janeway and Chakotay, and they figured out where the signal's coming from. So Janeway tells them to go, track down that signal, and they're gonna go. They're looking for Braxton. They don't know that it's Braxton at the time. They're just trying to. They know there's another weird signal that they're tracking down, and so she's like, we can't use the transporters. So just you'll have to find another way to get there. So then they find Braxton, and he's like a bum on the street. He's older. He's got a big beard. He's wheeling around a cart with signs of like the end of the world, stuff like that. And they corner him, and he's like, I recognize you. And they're like asking him, how long have you been here in the 20th century? And he's like, 30 years. That guy, I forget Egg Bigley Jr.'s, Henry Starling is his name. When my ship crashed landed, I emergency beamed myself out, and the guy Henry Starling got to my ship before I could get to it, and he stole it. So he explains this. So it's another causality loop kind of thing. So he says Voyager, or there's an explosion in the 29th century with Voyager, parts of Voyager were found or something, and that causes him to go back in time to stop Voyager. But by Voyager stopping him, he ends up back in the past, further in the past, where somebody steals his time ship, goes into the 29th century and causes the destruction. So he says that A leads to B, which leads to C, which leads right back to A. And I think they did a pretty decent job of explaining that. So Janeway's like, so really Voyager didn't cause this problem in the first place, and Chakotay's saying, well, now that we know what the problem is, we can prevent it. We can stop it. We just need to find this guy who stole your ship, your time ship. Okay, so then at right about that time, a cop shows up, and Braxton has dealt with this cop before, and he's like talking about how time travel and all this stuff, and of course they don't believe him, and then he's like, those two are time travelers too, and Janeway doesn't say anything and just kind of like acts like this guy's loopy, and he calls them traitors, and then he calls the cop, like the cop's trying to talk to him, and he calls him a quasi-Cardassian totalitarian, which I thought was pretty funny. So then switches back to, and then he takes off running, and the cop chases after him. So then back at Henry Starling's office. He's on the phone with somebody, and basically, Rain, Sarah Silverman, had told somebody at JPL, where they NASA's thing in California, where they work on jet propulsion and all the different stuff for like the space shuttle. Or if you ever watched The Martian, that's where they're trying to figure out how to get Mark Watney back, and all that. And then that person told somebody at like Caltech, like a professor or something. So she's been blabbing basically, and she also sent them a message, sent Voyager a message, which is just like SETI's like standard greeting, and Harry tells them to ignore it. So now people know that there's something up there. It was they've been discovered basically, and that so Tuvok and Tom show up at the observatory, and they've basically stole somebody's truck. I think it was a Dodge, and Tuvok makes a comment about it. And I also want to say I love it when they put Tuvok and Tom together. It's not often, but they do, and when they do, it's often pretty funny because Tuvok's like the straight man and Tom's like the funny guy. He's always goofing around and stuff, and it irritates Tuvok. Not so much as Neelix, I would say, but it's always pretty funny. So they're there at the observatory where they find the signal, and Sarah Silverman's office, and they're scanning her computer, and basically she walks in on him while they're doing that, so he puts away the tricorder, and she's like, "What are you guys doing here?" There's a employees only sign on the door, and Tom is like, "Oh, we got lost. We were touring the museum, or whatever they were." He makes up some shit, and he starts talking to her about her computer and all these things, and she's like, you guys, more about this stuff, for someone who gets lost, And then he sees the posters, and he starts talking about the movies, and he's, saying how he likes that movie, and, it's kind of flirting with her a little bit. But really, it's a distraction so that Tuvok can go behind and take the tricorder and like erase all the data from the computer, that any evidence that like Voyager's out there. So pretty smart. At first I was like, because Tuvok had said, I think we need to go now, and then Tom starts talking, and I was like, Tom, he just said we need to go there. And keep in mind, Tuvok is the ranking member. He's lieutenant commander, and Tom is just a lieutenant. And he even pulls rank on him, because at first when they get there, he's all messing around with the papers and stuff, and Tuvok's like, "Hey, no, you gotta stop goofing off and put shit back where you found it, so it looks like we were never even here." But that's before she walked in. So it was pretty smart move by Tom. And then, so as they're walking out, they're kind of talking, and uh, Tom is like, it's kind of a shame we had to do that because she was on the verge of like the biggest discovery in human history, And then she notices that all her stuff got on their computer got scrambled, and starts taking off running after him. And I got to thank the cameraman on the angle there, because when she's running, her assets are showing, and so she stops them as they're getting into the truck, and she asks Tuvok, "What's that thing in your pants?" And I thought that was pretty funny. And he's like, "Excuse me?" uh, and then right as that happens, one of Henry's henchmen show up because he had sent him to the observatory because she was blabbing to everybody about Voyager. So he pulls out a phaser and starts firing, and Tuvok fires back and shoots the phaser out of the guy's hand, and they take off into her van. And then back on Voyager, Harry is monitoring broadcasts and stuff to make sure that nobody's has discovered Voyager. Nothing else has gotten out. And Neelix is watching TV essentially, and they talk about soap operas, and Harry says, I can't even imagine, passively watching these stories when you can be a part of them, and Cass is like, you're just used to the holodeck, and I was like thinking, yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, if you look at AI and what AI can do now and what it's going to be able to do in the future, we're essentially going to have a holodeck type of thing. I mean, you've already got people putting, old actors into new roles. Gregory Peck playing, I don't know, Superman or something, things like that. So, I mean, there is going to be a point that, people can insert themselves into Star Wars or whatever, and that's what AI is all about. So I'm gonna take a look at the chat because it looks like there are some people out there. And that's what AI is all. Okay, we got DJ Play Nice, good evening. Michelle Ferry, good evening. Michelle Ferry saying hello to DJ Play Nice. So it's good to see y'all out there. Just now noticed, I saw a little movement on the screen and realized there was people out there. Okay, so where are we? Soap operas and all that. So then Tom and Rain and Tuvok are in her van, and they're fleeing. They're driving down the road, and she's asking all these questions, and they kind of allude that they're secret agents or something like that, CIA or whatever. And she threatens to scream if she has a little moonroof in her van. She threatens to scream if they don't tell the truth, and and she starts to scream, and he finally says, "Hey, we rescued you from being shot." And I gotta take a little bit of one little pause for a second and plug in my computer because it's about to die, and I still got a lot more to say. Okay, all right. Yeah, sorry about that. So what did she say? Oh, she says, she says to Tuvok, what's up with your ears? And she's like, you think I didn't notice that? And Tuvok says, they're a family trait, which again, a little bit of humor there. That was pretty funny. Then we go to Chakotay and Janeway, and they're at Starling's office, and they figure, they're looking on his computer. They got the tricorder open, and they're scanning, and they find the time ship, and they're trying to figure out the location of the time ship. And then the light comes on, and he comes in, and he's talking to them, and he's like, "Oh, I figured you guys would come back eventually," and Janeway's like tells him, you're gonna cause an explosion in the future. You can't do this. This is wrong, and this ship doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong in this time. And then she gets a call from Harry, and Harry is basically, what they're trying to do is erase all his stuff from the computer. And she says, "Go ahead," and he starts doing it, and then Starling finds out about it, and he kind of stops it. He's like using 29th century technology, because basically what he's done since 1967, when he discovered the time ship, was sort of like back engineer certain things to create like the computer revolution of this time, of this universe, of the Star Trek universe. So he's kind of like a Bill Gates or something, or what's his name from he's kind of like one of those, he's kind of like a tech bro, but he's cheating because he didn't create all of this. Steve Jobs is his name. But he didn't create all this. He just stole the technology from the time ship, and he was kind of crudely figuring out how to use it. So Starling just gets on the, grabs the comm badge from Janeway and says that if he doesn't stop doing what he's doing, he'll kill the captain. He'll kill Janeway. So Harry says to stop, and then B'Elanna is suggesting that they beam them out, and he's like, "Well, we've already, the captain's already told us that we can't do that. because you have to go lower into the atmosphere. And she's like, well, we don't have much of a choice, you know. So he does it and uses the emergency transporters. And so they beam up, and she's like trying to beam out the time ship. And he's like trying to stop it using his technology, so they weren't able to stop it. And then at the end, he like Cass reports that the doctor's missing, and she's like, "What do you mean?" And Cass is like, you know, he's not here. And then so basically he stole the doctor from the ship, and he shows up in Starling's office. And then Janeway is told about this report on the news that I think it was Neelix, where basically you see like a news reel, and it's like somebody had caught Voyager on camera with their camcorder. And you can't really make out completely what it is, but it's obviously, you know, it's a UFO. And then you can see a title card that says "To be continued," and that's the end of that episode. And I liked it. There's some good humor. There's some action. There's you know, I always like time travel. I'm a sucker for time travel. So you know, I gave it a 7.5. You know, so now we get to the portion of the show where fate chooses the next episode. One of these days, I'll get some like echo and, you know, different little sound effects and stuff. Once I get, you know, more equipment, or, you know, whatever. Right now, I mean, you know, I can do my own echo. 7.5 is fair. Yeah, I mean, it's better than most early seasons of Voyager before, you know, 7 comes aboard. Yeah, I think it's fair. It's more than fair. Okay, so this time I managed to not mess it up. It's still on there. Voyager Season 3, Future's End. And it's part 1. So it doesn't say that. And I forgot that it was what episode it was at the time. So let's press the randomize button. See what we get. I'm convinced that the universe just wants me to do Voyager for some reason. Voyager season 7, episode 11, Shattered. That's where another kind of time travel-ish episode where I think, if I get this right, Chakotay is in the Chakotay is in the medical bay, sick bay, when something happens to the ship, and then he, like, different parts of the ship are like different times in throughout Voyager's history up to this point. And there's a point in where it's like before they even launched, I think, and he can walk through. The Doctor creates this device to where he can walk through the different time periods, and he has to convince, because at this point, Janeway, Janeway hasn't met him, and he has to basically solve this problem. I think that's what the one. Yeah. Oh no, another. This one's not bad. So, I mean, I'm basically just. I think I need to rewatch Voyager again. I saw it when it first was released, but I've forgotten a lot of episodes. Yeah. If you go on Pluto, I watch them on Paramount Plus. But if you go on Pluto TV, if you want it to watch it for free, it runs in a loop. They have TNG in a loop. They have the original series in a loop. They have Deep Space Nine in a loop, and they have it and Voyager on a loop. And then they have some episodes of Enterprise, and I don't know what's going on with that. But Pluto TV, it's free. There's other shows on there. So anyway, that concludes the episode, guy and gal. So I want to thank the both of y'all for showing up tonight. Anybody that's kind of lurking, anybody that watches this in the future, we'll be back on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm the Dead Man. This is the Red Hour. Thank you for showing up. I will see you next time.